This is my book report on Malinche by Laura Esquivel, a book that I would recommend for this class because it fills in a lot of the questions left by Todorov's account of Malinche's work with Cortez, in terms of who she is, where she comes from, and why she helped Cortez. Secondly, I would recommend this book because it supports a lot of the themes and main ideas of the class, particularly Restall's myth of native desolation. Esquivel shows that Malinche did not believe that Cortez was a god, particularly Quetzalcoatl. She also shows that natives reacted to the presence of the Spanish in different ways. And just like Malinche acted in her own self interest, other natives did as well. And thirdly, she really gets at syncretism. Esquivel shows that Malinche accepts the parts of Christian doctrine that fit in with her own beliefs and rejects parts that don't. So, for example, on page 42, Esquivel writes, for Malinche, the ritual of baptism was very important, and she was deeply moved to know that it was the same for the Spaniards. Quetzalcoatl was, after all, the god of water. On page 51, Esquivel writes, Malinche's heart leapt with joy when she saw a cross in the middle of the altar. For her, it belonged to the Lord Quetzalcoatl. Esquivel's intention here with this story is for it to seem like it's ripped from the pages of the Florentine Codex. The following still illustrations are from the inside cover of her book. They're done by Brian Cronin, and the live action sketches are mine. So with the following slides, I will summarize how they fit into Esquivel's story and try to connect them to broader themes of the class. The first 20 pages of the book take into account the circumstances of Malinche's birth. What's important to Malinche's story is that her mother decided to better her circumstances through marriage and wanted to get rid of Malinche by selling her into slavery. And her grandmother says, don't get rid of the child, I'll raise her. Through her relationship with her grandmother, Malinche develops the gift of tongues and the confidence to question the world around her and come up with her own ideas about what's happening. Malinche is sold into slavery when her grandmother passes away. She's traded several times, which is why she travels from the Aztec Empire to the Mayan Empire. This journey was foretold by her grandmother through a corn prophecy. By throwing seeds of corn on the ground, the grandmother told the following, soon now you will have no home, and you'll no longer devote yourself to making cloth and food. You'll have to walk and watch, and watching you'll learn from every type of face, from all skin colors, all differences, all tongues, of the things that we are, how we will cease to be, and what will become. This is the voice of the corn. Malinche acted on the corn prophecies when the opportunity came to translate for the Spanish meanings and gods against her own beliefs and her own idea of Quetzalcoatl. On page 86, Esquivel writes, Quetzalcoatl was a man who'd become a god who did not need human sacrifices, did not ask for them, who only needed to set fire with his cane to the old sun so that the new sun rose without any human sacrifices along the way. The issue was not with a man becoming a god, but with human sacrifice itself. Why would a god who's against human sacrifices sacrifice himself and then demand that his flesh and blood be eaten? But if Christ as Quetzalcoatl was problematic, Cortez as Quetzalcoatl created even bigger problems. Quetzalcoatl was the god of water. If anything, he would certainly be clean, but not Cortez. Above anything else, he was stinking filthy. The second problem with the apotheosis of Cortez is his preoccupation with gold. According to native tradition, gold is the excrement of gods. So no god is going to be interested in accumulating his own feces. Malinche, above any other native, is aware that Cortez is not a god. But if this is what Cortez wants her to make natives believe, she's going to do her best to go along with it because for her, there's no turning back. If she doesn't move forward with the Spanish conquest or supporting the conquistadors in conquest, she's going to be turned back to slavery. For her, it's not an option. So she continued to translate for Cortez, changing him in the minds of natives from a conquistador into the great god Quetzalcoatl. I think Esquivel makes a mistake in having Malinche lament this decision later on. On page 120, Esquivel writes, Malinche never expected that Montezuma would dispossess his throne in favor of Cortez, and that she, being the translator, would be the one who practically handed Cortez his kingdom. She also did not imagine the profound sorrow she would feel on doing so. It was sad to realize that her faith meant nothing when compared to Montezuma's. To see an emperor, a man who had been educated for power, give up his kingdom moved her deeply. But I think Esquivel is making a mistake in this passage. She had everything riding on Cortez's success. Malinche would have expected that Montezuma would dispossess his throne. Another mistake that Esquivel makes is having Malinche fall in love with her rapist, Cortez. It's one of the things that pisses me off about cheap dime store romance novels. And it's one of the things that disappoints me most about this story. Women do not fall in love with their rapists. I think Esquivel should have made the point that for Malinche, if Cortez failed, it meant going back to a life of not only slavery, but of rape every time she's traded from one person to the next.